Hello, third graders. Today we are going to start Unit 3, and our first lesson is the What's My Rule lesson. And this setup is a little bit different. This will be your agenda for the day. So you'll have an option to click in and join the Google Meets here. And then you will have the option to watch the video. You will have one assignment with it, which is Math Journal page 65, and you'll need to complete that and turn it in to me in Cami. You will have a second online assessment, which is Math Boxes 3.1, and you will do that in Cami as well. And then you have an extension activity, which is something that you can do to get some more practice with the skill for that day. So at the bottom of each of these will be clickable links that you'll be able to click on, and it'll take you to that activity. And as always, as you go through Canvas, you can always hit the next button. So our goal for today is I can find missing numbers and rules in What's My Rules tables. So as you're working through this, you're going to need your math journal, a pencil, and maybe a piece of paper to work on. When you see this page on the video lesson, the link will be on this TV. You'll be able to click on it and watch the video. So our first little setup says a bakery is making cookies and doubles the number of cookies made every 20 minutes. Use this information to complete the chart. So some of the keywords that I see in here is this word doubles. And I see the number 20, but the 20 minutes really doesn't tell me a whole lot except that it's 20 minutes later. But I do want to use double. So whenever I double something, I'm just adding it to itself. So if I have 5 and I double it, I add another 5. So for this example, I have 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. 50 doubled, 50 plus 50 is 100. 200 doubled, 200 plus 200 is 400. 75 doubled, 75 plus 75 is 150. And then 150 doubled, 150 plus 150 is 300. So we have completed this chart doubling each of our number of cookies. So every time I doubled a cookie, doubled what was being made, 20 minutes later, these numbers came out. So what's my rule problems? There's 4 different types. On this one, we had to determine the out number. So we know how many cookies went in the oven or were being made, and we had to figure out how much came out. So we use this by talking about a function machine. And what I like to do when I think about this function machine is what I put in, and then I do my rule up here. The rule is going to be right here. And then I get my outcome. So in this case, my rule was double. So whatever I put in, my rule tells me I have to double it, and that's what comes out. So this is a what's my rule problem. Again, it would be 8 doubled is 16. 50 doubled is 100. 200 doubled is 200 or 400. 75 doubled is 150. And then 150 doubled is 300. So we're going to use this idea to help us complete the next What's My Rule activities. So this is in your book, and we are going to look. Actually, these are not in your book. You will be working on some other math, some other What's My Rule problems inside your book. These are just some practice that we're going to do on the video so that you can understand what's happening. So the first type of What's My Rule type is when we know the rule and we know the inputs. So we know what goes in. What we're trying to find is the output. So when I think about this, I can see that my rule is 9. That's going to be important for me to know. But it's not just 9, it is subtract 9. So anytime I go from the in to the out, I'm going to subtract 9. And this really helps me out if I draw my arrow and then put the rule above it, -9. And you will understand why in just a minute as we're going through the next couple of problems. So if I think about this as a machine and I put in the number 13, what happens in the machine is that my number decreases by 9. So I have to solve it by saying 13 minus 9, and that is 4. I go to the next one. I have the number 10 that I put in. My rule says to subtract 9, so 10 minus 9 is 1. As I go to the third one, number 17. 17 is what I put in my machine. The machine does its job and takes away 9, so I am left with 8. I look at the number 18. I put it in my machine, I subtract 9, and I am left with 9. Now, there's almost always, a blank one at the bottom that you get to make up on your own. So please do not skip this. This is something that you will need to create your own idea. So we could just pick any number, and I'm going to pick 29. And I'm going to put 29 in my machine, and I'm going to take away 9, and that leaves me with 20. So this is one way to solve this problem. We know the rule and we know the input, but we still need to find the output. So we just follow the rule. Now, you also have this where you know the rule and you know the output, but you're missing the input. Remember, my rule says if I have this number, if I know my input, then I go to my output. My rule says to add 5. So I'm going to have add 5 at the top, but that doesn't really help me because I don't know what I started with to be able to get 12. So something else that I always like to do is to put in what happens if we work backwards. So if we start with the output and we go to the input, we have to do the opposite of the input. And in this case, it would be -5. So when we go from the input to the output, we add 5, but then when we go from the output to the input, we subtract 5. So I have the output. I need to go to the input. So I'm going to do 12 minus 5 is 7. I'm going to look at my next number, 15. And 15, I have to go from the output to the input. So 15 minus 5 is 10. On the next one, I have 26. Again, I'm going to go from the output to the input. So I'm doing the opposite and subtracting 5. 26 minus 5 is 21. On the next one, I have 50 in the output. So I'm going to go backwards. And I'm going to say 50 minus 5 is 45. Again, I have this blank one at the bottom. Don't forget to do this. So I'm just going to pick a number, something different than what I already have. So I'm going to go with 38. 38, and then I'm going to go to the output or the input. So I have to subtract 5 minus 5. 38 minus 5 is 33. So when we know the rule and we know the out, then we are going to do the opposite of what the rule says. So my rule says add 5, but I have to work backwards. So I have to do subtract 5. Okay, so another type is when we know the input and we know the output, but we don't know what the rule is. So the only way that we can figure this out is to look at what's happening in these numbers. So when I put in a number, I have to ask myself, does this number increase or decrease? If it increases, I'm going to add or multiply. If it decreases, then I'm going to be subtracting or dividing. You can't see the word divide down here, but it does. So when I look at 2, when I change it, I'm increasing to 10. So I know that I'm going to either add or multiply for this number. Let's make sure. I have 3 and my number increases, so I'm going to either add or multiply. So I know one of my rules is either going to be to add or multiply. Now I need to find out. So I'm just going to try add first. So I have to think about 2 plus something equals 10. Well, 2 plus 8 equals 10. Let's see if I add 8 to the next number, if that gets me the output. So I'm going to do 3 plus 8, and that equals 11. It doesn't equal 15. So it makes me think that maybe 8 plus 8 is not my rule. So I don't think I'm going to be doing add. I might need to do multiply. So I'm going to try this. So if I multiply 2 times something, can I get 10? Well, I know that I can count by 2s. Let's see how many 2s I get if I count until I get 10. So I'm going to do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe my rule is times 5. Let's see if that works. 3 times 5. Well, 5, 10, 15. That does work because that's what came out. Let's double check with 4. 4 times 5, so we're going to go 5, 10, 15, 20. That does equal 20. 5 times 5, let's try it again. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So I know that that works. So my rule that makes sense for all of these numbers is going to be times 5. I had to decide between addition and multiplication. Addition didn't work, so I tried multiplication. Now I need to make one up on my own. So this goes 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to continue the pattern. 5 times 6, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So my answer is 30. And that makes the rule complete. Okay. Another, what's my rule? Is when you're missing the rule. You have some inputs, but you're missing inputs, and you're missing outputs. So it makes it really hard. I need to be able to find what happens when I go from the in to the out. And it looks like maybe I'm going to need to know what happens when I go from the out to the end. So because I don't know my rule, I'm going to use my little step down here. I'm going to find out, does my number increase or does it decrease? Well, I have 40, but I don't know what the out is, so I can't really use that to help me. I have 30 and I go to 10, so that decreases. So because it decreases, I'm going to either subtract or I'm going to divide. I have to work where I know my numbers. So the numbers that I know are right here. I know 30 to 10, and I know 52 to 32. Now, if I needed help, I could use my number grid, and I could count to see how many spaces it is to jump, or I could use what I know, and since I might be subtracting, use that operation to help me. So I could say 30 minus something equals 10. Well, if I were to use my number grid, I could start at 30 and then count up to 20 and then to 10. So if I'm at 30, 20, 10, and it would be like this, I would have made 10, 20 in my jumps. So it looks like maybe my roll could be minus 20. Let's see if that works for my second one. 52 minus 20. 2 minus 0 is 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. And 32 is my answer. So I don't know these other ones, but I'm guessing that my roll is going to be minus 20. I'm going to clean this up a little bit so that we can see again. So my roll is going to be minus 20. I want to put in my little ways to help me. So from the in to the out, we're going to subtract 20. From the out to the in, we do the opposite of this one. So the opposite of subtract is add. So 45 minus 20 is 25. 30 minus 20 is 10. Now I know my out. 80, I'm going to work backwards. Plus 20 is going to be 100. And I can even check my work. I can say, well, what's 100 minus 20? It is 80, so that works. 52 minus 20 equals 32. And then I need to make one up. So I'm going to pick 44 minus 20 is 24. And I completed that one. All right. So those are the 4 types of what's my role problems. Like I said before, you are going to turn to Math Journal page 65, and you will be working on that page. Those are the what's my rule. You have 5 where you have to complete them based on what the information is. And then you have a 6th one that is completely blank. You get to make the rule, you get to make the input and the output, however you want to create that. And then you have math boxes, and then do some extra practice with the what's my rule by going to IXL H4 and H5.